My mistress is pregnant with a boy. You're no longer needed, so get out. Those were the words proclaimed loudly by my husband, Michael, whom I had once sworn eternal love to. I, Chloe, am 32 years old and have been married to Michael for 7 years, dedicating my whole heart and soul to him. Even when Michael was transferred to an unfamiliar place due to work, I quit my beloved job to support him. I provided him with warm meals, a clean house, and a comfortable life, all while continuing to work myself. And yet, despite enduring the repeated pressures from his parents to see a grandchild and undergoing painful fertility treatments for over 5 years, both mentally and physically challenging. However, as if mocking all my hard work, Michael was secretly having an affair with another woman behind my back.
This is unbelievable. I'm going to sue you for damages,
I declared during our discussion about divorce, only for Michael and his mistress, Sophia, to reject the idea of paying any compensation.
Forget about the damages. Do you know how old Sophia is? She's 25, younger and without the financial means you have. Give her a break. But I guess being young, her eggs were probably fresh. It only took a few tries before she got pregnant. I'm talking about efficiency.
Michael said this, and Sophia, looking pleased, joined in on attacking me.
That's right. Jealous I got pregnant so easily?
Their unbelievable attitude tore me apart. However, I couldn't back down.
Regardless of what you say, I will be suing for damages,
I stated, calmly explaining our next steps with the lawyer present. As we talked, Sophia became visibly irritated.
Enough! I'm going to the bathroom.
She abruptly stood up, clearly frustrated. At that moment,
what's this?
Looking down, I was speechless. A mysterious fluid dripped and fell from beneath her white dress. It was.
Isn't it strange? You're supposed to be pregnant, but there's blood?
My name is Chloe, I'm 32 years old. I work at a trading company in New York. I was 25 when I married Michael, whom I met at a mixer, and he was 3 years older than me. Michael is a salesperson at a car manufacturer. From the moment we met, I was attracted to his interesting conversation and suave demeanor. Luckily, Michael took a liking to me too, and our relationship quickly developed. Everything progressed smoothly up to our marriage. Right after we got married, Michael was transferred to a different region by his company's orders. Though it was a regional transfer, the area was the biggest city in the region, as convenient as it gets, expected to see a continued influx of people. In that promising land, Michael was entrusted with the responsibility of overseeing several dealerships. He asked me to quit my job and come with him. I was torn because, at the time, I was working at a major publishing company. Having studied literature in college and dreamed of becoming an editor since high school, I was overjoyed when I landed an editorial position at the publishing company. But I also wanted to support Michael as he ventured into new territory alone, and more than anything, I didn't want to be apart from him during our critical first years of marriage. Moreover, becoming a mother was also one of my childhood dreams. At that time, Michael's regional assignment was said to be at least 5 years long. If I let Michael go alone, by the time he returned, I would be 30. Back then, turning 30 seemed so far away, and I wasn't confident about starting a family at that age. So, after much deliberation, I resigned from the company to accompany him on his transfer.
It's a relief that you're coming with me, Chloe. Just focus on our home for a while and support my life. It's stressful adapting to a new environment.
Following his words, I decided not to look for work at our new location, focusing instead on our home and trying to conceive. However, having a child proved to be difficult. In desperation, one night, I hesitantly suggested to Michael, maybe we should start considering fertility treatments. He glanced at me and said sharply, "Sure, we can do that, but use your savings for it." His words were a shock. But there was no helping it. Eventually, I started using the savings I had accumulated from working at the publishing house before marriage to pay for visits to fertility clinics. Michael's cooperation was crucial for the fertility treatments. Yet, no matter how many times I talked to him about it, he failed to show understanding.
Why do I have to schedule our intimate life around some doctor's orders? If there's real love, shouldn't conceiving happen naturally at any time? It must be a defect on your part, Chloe, that we can't do what normal couples do.
Having followed him to a region where I had no friends, the words of my husband, whom I thought I could believe in, gnawed at my heart.
Once again, my period has come this month. Why is it that all our friends' wives can get pregnant, but Chloe can't? You've been really on edge lately, and it's been a hassle for me too. Why don't you find something else to focus on?
Following Michael's suggestion, I stopped focusing solely on our household and went back to work. Returning to work life after a while, I found a part-time administrative job at a local small business, where my days were filled with making coffee and photocopying. The company had many older employees, yet it seemed like they had the mental age of children, quick to gossip about anyone who stepped away from their desk. It was that kind of environment. Right after joining, I found myself wishing I could get pregnant soon and leave this company behind. But despite pleading with Michael for his cooperation and trying both artificial insemination and IVF, our situation remained unchanged, and I couldn't get pregnant. In the end, all our efforts were in vain, and 5 years into our marriage, I turned 30 without having had a child.
Chloe, dear. It's such a shame. You were young and healthy, and now you're suddenly 30. Even though late pregnancies are more common these days, weren't you taking it a bit too easy after getting married at 25? With Michael's earnings, you've only been dabbling in work. You have all this free time, so why can't you show us even a single grandchild?
We're working full-time over here. Each time we visited his parents, the insults continued to get worse, moving beyond mere snide remarks about not being able to have children. Michael's parents are in their 50s, still in the prime of their working lives. Both high school teachers, they hold a strong belief that being a responsible adult means continuing to work while having children, so they couldn't understand me at all for not being able to get pregnant while only working a part-time job. However, Michael would just stay silent and pretend not to notice during such times. Because of this, our rides home from his parents' house were always filled with arguments. We might be at our breaking point. That's what I started to think a year ago, when I was 31. That's when, a bit later than planned, Michael was able to return to New York.
Chloe, I've been promoted. It's all thanks to you for supporting me in unfamiliar places for 6 years. Michael. That's great. I'll make you a special dinner to celebrate.
It was a ray of hope that finally shone into our home, which had been filled with gloom for so long. From that day on, it was as if all our past troubles were a lie, and we began talking a lot more. Our meals at home and weekend dates increased, and even our nights together.
Wow, what a lovely condo. We're going to live here?
Of course. You've been through a lot, Chloe, so I rented a nice apartment in New York for US. Life in New York started off smoothly. I couldn't return to my former publishing company, but I joined a trading company, where I was tasked with administrative work and eventually assigned to work on things like the company newsletter. The people around me were kind, and I was able to work with more mental ease than before. With his promotion, Michael seemed to have a bit more time and began to be more cooperative with our efforts to conceive. Maybe, just maybe, we might be able to get pregnant soon. I started to harbor that faint hope. But, about 6 months ago, I started to feel that something was off with my husband's behavior. He said his workload had decreased since he could delegate more to his subordinates and that he was working less overtime, but suddenly, he started coming home late in taxis and going on business trips over the weekends. Then, one day.
Hey, Chloe. Have you noticed anything different about Michael recently? The thing is, a while back, I saw Michael coming into this place, holding hands with a young woman.
I heard about it from the owner of a small supermarket at the next station. Michael doesn't know, but I sometimes shop at this supermarket, which is a bit far from our closest station, for fresh produce. They have a wide selection, and it's easier to get seasonal fruits there. I couldn't believe her words, but considering Michael's recent behavior, it wasn't impossible. When I got home, I decided to snoop around Michael's study. And then,
What's this?
in a boldly placed planner on his desk, I found photos tucked inside. It was a photo of him with a young woman. There were 2 shots of him with a young woman, their cheeks pressed together, and another photo of the woman kissing Michael's cheek. I could feel the warmth draining from my hands. While my fingertips grew cold, my heart was pounding. I couldn't fully grasp the betrayal by my husband, revealed after 7 years of marriage.
Hey, Michael! What's this photo?
When Michael came home that night, I immediately confronted him about the truth. Upon seeing the photo, I thrust at him. Michael's eyes widened for a moment, but he soon started smirking and laughing. Oh, got caught, huh? And then he said something unbelievable.
My mistress is pregnant with a boy. You're no longer needed, so get out. What are you talking about? What does that mean?
Just what I said.
I'm telling you to leave. A woman who can't get pregnant is useless to me.
I was shocked by his attitude and statement. The affair was shocking enough, but to hear that he had gotten her pregnant. And his words mocked all the hard work I had put in. Why could someone who had morally wrong relations with my husband get pregnant so easily, while I, who had tried for so many years, could not? I packed my bags in tears, swirling with thoughts. I can't forgive this. Rather than the sorrow of being betrayed by the man I loved, the feeling of wanting to punish my husband and his mistress grew stronger. From that day, I began preparing for a divorce. 7 months later. I really wanted to have a discussion with Michael immediately, but he kept dodging or getting angry whenever I tried, so it was hard to make it happen. After a few months, I decided to leave the house and stay at my parents'. We decided to discuss the divorce through a lawyer.
Today, we're here to discuss the divorce between Michael and Chloe.
The female lawyer, consulted through my father's connection, was very supportive and quickly set up a meeting with Michael. It was unexpected that Sophia, the mistress, would also show up. The meeting started at 10 a.m. on a Saturday at a diner, and Sophia arrived late. I had been thinking of divorcing Michael properly and demanding compensation from Michael, but I really didn't want to see the face of the woman pregnant with his child, wishing she wouldn't come at all. But she showed up 20 minutes late to the restaurant.
Sorry, being pregnant really slows down your preparations.
Indeed, her belly was swollen. 9 months, maybe close to full term.
I think I'll have some pancakes, and a sandwich, and maybe even some pasta.
Sophia ordered a massive amount of food. It was enough to make one suspect pregnancy cravings. However, judging by the size of her belly, the morning sickness period should be over.
Now that everyone is here, I would like to move on to discussing the damages Chloe wishes to claim from Michael and Sophia.
When the lawyer started like this, Sophia exclaimed dramatically, "What?
You're going to claim damages?
For me, who's pregnant?
When I'm about to have a child, will I need to spend more and more money?
Are you serious?
Just because you couldn't get pregnant for years, you're taking it out on me, who got pregnant easily."
I was stunned by her outrageous statement. But Michael, sitting next to Sophia, was going along with her.
Come on, drop the damage. Do you know how old Sophia is? She's 25, Unlike you, she's young and doesn't have much in terms of financial power, so give her a break. But yeah, probably because she's young, her eggs were fresh, huh? It didn't take many tries before she got pregnant.
Seriously, it was super efficient. Gotta be thankful for that part, though. I felt dizzy at such an outrageous statement. Despite the lawyer and I trying to move the conversation forward with various remarks, Michael and Sophia kept up this attitude, leading nowhere. Eventually, possibly out of irritation, Sophia suddenly stood up, saying, "Enough. I'm going to the bathroom." At that moment,
"Hey, there's blood coming out."
I stared at Sophia's lower half as she stood up. There was something that clearly looked like blood seeping through the thigh area of her white dress. But she was supposed to be pregnant, which means she shouldn't be having her period. Besides, along with the blood, there was a lot of fluid that looked like water dripping down, indicating something was wrong.
What's this?
Sophia immediately panicked. The sight of the blood suggested something might have happened to the baby. Michael, too, was flustered, asking, "Sophia, are you okay?" In the end, what was supposed to be a meeting turned into me and the lawyer quickly dialing 911, rushing Sophia and my husband into an ambulance. Why am I, the victim, doing something like helping the mistress? I thought, feeling utterly drained as I headed back to my parents' house where I was staying. The next day. On Sunday morning, as I was having breakfast with my family, the doorbell rang repeatedly.
"Chloe, good morning." "Oh, excuse me. Should I say I'm home?"
As my parents greeted him at the door, stunned, Michael barged into the living room.
"You know what's funny? It turns out Sophia was lying about being pregnant."
Michael started explaining, laughing carelessly. He met Sophia a few months after he started working in New York. Sophia worked at a cabaret club frequently visited by Michael's company. Self-described as resembling a certain plus-size charisma model, Sophia was slightly plump but had shiny white skin, big, round eyes, and a friendly personality, making her relatively popular at the club. During a farewell after a dinner party, Sophia leaned on Michael. Elated from his promotion to New York, Michael was taken by her soft skin and plump lips and ended up inviting her to a hotel. That's how it all began. And on one of their nights together, Sophia, usually quite lively, seemed unwell that night, repeatedly rushing to the bathroom to vomit.
"Sophia, could it be you're pregnant?"
At the time, Sophia didn't answer. But a few days later, she confessed, "I tried a pregnancy test, and it turns out I am pregnant." At the time, Michael was incredibly happy. Returning to New York meant being closer to Michael's parents again, and the pressure from them to show us a grandchild intensified. "If we have a kid, I'll marry Sophia." My parents would be thrilled. He was over the moon with this idea. Finding out later that the baby was going to be a boy only added fuel to his misguided enthusiasm. However, Sophia wasn't actually pregnant. At 25, Sophia was looking for a time to quit the nightlife job. Having slept with Michael after a day she vomited due to overeating, a misunderstanding led her to think, "I can use this to get married." Being a food lover, she began eating more and gaining weight to feign pregnancy. Yesterday's incontinence was due to stress urinary incontinence caused by obesity pressing on the bladder. The blood was because she was actually having her period.
Man, she was a real piece of work. I was worried she had a miscarriage or something, but to think she wasn't even pregnant. Of course, I've broken up with her cleanly.
Michael disparaged Sophia. He then held my hand, saying, "I misunderstood this time, my bad. Chloe, let's continue with the fertility treatments together. We're a couple, after all. Let's cancel the divorce." The words he spoke felt oddly distant, as if coming from far away. Why had I endured painful fertility treatments for years for a child with such a man? I couldn't help but laugh, finding my past self foolish for being so angry.
"Chloe! Thank you. You'll give us another chance, right?"
Seeing me laugh, he mistook it as acceptance to revoke the divorce. Michael, moved to tears, tried to embrace me. But of course, I didn't want such a despicable man to touch me and brushed off his hand sharply.
"I've endured years of being ridiculed and tormented by you and your parents, dreaming of having your child, enduring the pain of fertility treatments. Can you imagine the excruciating pain? The artificial inseminations I begged you for, using my savings over and over, how I felt every time they failed, you'll never understand, not that you'd try. There's no way I could start over with someone like that."
Yelling this through tears, I told my concerned parents, who were watching from the door, "Please, kick him out."
"Hey, Chloe, wait, listen to me."
Pulled away by my parents, and my brothers who came over worried about me, Michael was shut out of my parents' house. But since that day, Michael has repeatedly stormed my parents' house, insisting on not getting a divorce. Even when I said I wouldn't talk without going through a lawyer, he wouldn't listen, sitting in front of the house from early morning. Not just at my parents' house. He also ambushed me in front of the specialist trading company where I worked, waiting for me every day after work.
Hey, Chloe! Please forgive me.
His plea, repeated like a curse, haunted me even when Michael wasn't around, and I started to feel mentally exhausted. After much deliberation, I decided to contact someone.
It's unusual for you to reach out, especially since in the latter part of your marriage, you refused to talk unless it was through Michael.
My mother-in-law, whom I met after a long time, still had a knack for snide remarks. However, I felt she was much more reasonable than Michael. Yes, I decided to explain everything to my in-laws. Proud as he is, Michael probably hadn't told them. I thought I got my mistress pregnant and initiated a divorce, but it turned out the pregnancy was a lie, so I'm trying to cancel the divorce. As expected, the news was a complete shock to my in-laws. At first, they listened with furrowed brows, but gradually their expressions brightened. So, Chloe wants a divorce because she's fed up with Michael. It's regrettable, but honestly, it might not be bad news for us, my mother-in-law said.
Yeah, I guess. It might be weird to say this, but Sophia's 25, right? We might actually prefer her over Chloe, who seems to have trouble getting pregnant.
Ignoring Sophia's lies, my in-laws seemed to be getting their hopes up unnecessarily, which was exasperating, but if they could handle things smoothly on their end, all the better for me.
Leave it to us. We'll have a good talk with Michael.
Sent off with an unusually bright smile and even given sweets to take home, I left my in-laws' house. A few days later.
Hey, what's going on, Chloe?
Michael called, sounding completely unhinged. Despite my insistence on communicating through a lawyer, he kept trying to contact me directly through various means, his company's phone number, friends' cell phones, and even payphones, which was annoying. But this is all for a smooth divorce. I tried to stay calm as I answered the phone.
My dad and mom suddenly started saying I should divorce you. They were all about having you give birth just before. What's with this sudden change? Something's off.
Michael seemed to be at his parents' house. As I listened without much interest, there was a shuffle of noise, and the voice on the phone changed.
Chloe, I'm sorry about this. He seems a bit distraught. It seems like he's not making any rational decisions. We've tried talking to him, but if you could talk to him too, I think he'd understand. He's been saying he hasn't been able to talk to you lately. Could you come over now? I have the divorce papers ready. All that's left is for you two to sign. Really? Thank you so much. I'll be right there.
I hurried into a taxi. According to my conversation with my mother-in-law in the car, Michael was upset but apparently close to being convinced. They threatened him that if he didn't divorce me and remarry Sophia, all of their inheritance would go to his brother. This threat seemed to have an effect. When I arrived at my in-laws' house, Michael looked exhausted and had already finished signing. Without taking off my coat, I approached him and threw my true feelings at him.
Hey, Michael. I really hate you now. I've come to detest you.
At those words, Michael's shoulders twitched. He slowly turned around, his face showing a cold expression I had seen several times during our marriage.
I hate it too. A defective woman like you who can't get pregnant.
I silently took the divorce papers and left their house. Later on, in a reorganized meeting with Michael, Sophia, and the lawyer, I once again stated my intention to demand damages from him.
Unbelievable. I should be the one demanding damages for wasting my time with a woman like you. I'm feeling mental anguish because of the stress. I want money too.
The two of them kept yelling. The lawyer present sighed in disbelief and, speaking on my behalf, told them that if they refused to pay damages, we would have to go to court. The mention of court suddenly made them quiet down. They agreed to pay the demanded damages quickly. They also promised not to contact or approach me in any way in the future. And we prepared a document just in case something happened. Perhaps because they really didn't want to go to court, he obediently transferred the damages by the specified deadline. When I confirmed the transfer on my smartphone, I felt as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Having overstayed my welcome at my parents' house, I decided it was time to move out and change jobs for a fresh start. Just as the seasons were changing and signs of spring were appearing, I felt relieved to be able to start my new life calmly. However, I would occasionally receive creepy messages, attempts at reconciliation from Michael. No matter how many times I blocked him, he would always find a way to contact me from a different account. It seemed I needed to change not just the block settings but my smartphone and phone number altogether. While I was reluctant to go through the hassle of transferring data, I decided to change my phone as an opportunity to start anew. I forwarded all the messages to all our mutual acquaintances, asking them not to give my contact information to Michael even if he asked. Later, I found out that among those I forwarded the emails to were Michael's co-workers, which apparently made the story spread within Michael's company. Although the company knew about the divorce, it became known that he was sending weird messages to his ex-wife, making him quite the laughingstock. Eventually, feeling uncomfortable at the company he always bragged about as representing the US, it seems Michael resigned. And about half a year after I started my new life. "Hey Chloe, listen to this." Suddenly, I got a call from my mother-in-law. Even though I changed my smartphone and blocked Michael's contact through all possible means, I had given my contact to my mother-in-law in case Michael harassed me again so that we could call each other if something happened. However, this was the first time she actually called. Over the phone, my mother-in-law was sobbing. It seems, just as my in-laws had schemed, Michael quickly remarried Sophia after divorcing me. However, because he felt uncomfortable at work and resigned, he ended up living at his parents' house, becoming unemployed. And Sophia, who had originally worked at night but started pretending to be pregnant since her affair with Michael, quit her job to be supported by Michael and hasn't worked since. So now, 2 unemployed people were living in the house, significantly increasing my in-laws' burden. Even if a grandchild was born under these circumstances, they wouldn't be able to take care of it. Even after 1 or 2 months, neither of them made any attempt to start working, and my in-laws were trying to kick them out, but about a month ago, it turned out Sophia was actually pregnant. Is that so? Well, isn't that what you wanted? Everything is going according to plan. As the conversation seemed to be dragging on, I switched the call to speakerphone and leisurely sipped tea while nodding along, to which my mother-in-law exclaimed in horror. Sophia was still spending all day at home, just fiddling with her smartphone. Being pregnant, she couldn't be asked to do much heavy housework, which was understandable, but she started refusing even the small help she used to give when asked. Gently pointing it out would lead to her throwing a tantrum, saying, "Are you bullying a pregnant woman, making the household atmosphere even worse despite the pregnancy?" As for Michael, he said he was supporting Sophia by his side and wasn't looking for full-time work, only considering short-time part-time jobs, despite once priding himself on his work. He didn't want to be a regular employee at some mediocre company because of his ego of having worked at a leading company. My in-laws are still working full-time as teachers. They were supposed to be in a situation where all they had to do was wait for grandchildren after their own children had grown up and left the nest. However, they suddenly found themselves having to take care of big kids who refused to work at all, leaving them utterly exhausted every day. But talking to you, Chloe, I've calmed down a bit. I think we did something terrible to you. We caused you so much pain, so I have to take responsibility for my actions. After venting for a while, my mother-in-law seemed to have calmed down and hung up the phone after saying thank you. Since then, there hasn't been any contact from her. And a year after my divorce from Michael, living peacefully in a new place, the wounds from the affair and divorce were gradually healing, and I had even managed to restart my career as an editor at a publishing company, albeit much smaller than before, enjoying fulfilling days. The sender was the lawyer who had helped me a year ago, but inside the envelope, along with a note saying this arrived at our office, so we're sending it to you, was a small envelope. It was a letter from my mother-in-law. The sender's address wasn't written. The letter detailed how my in-laws, Michael and Sophia, were living now. First off, it appears my in-laws no longer live in that house. After talking to me on the phone, my mother-in-law finally decided to kick Michael and Sophia out. They took back the keys they had given them, covered the windows from the inside like barricades, and made it impossible for them to enter. However, as one might expect, it wasn't that simple.
Hey, Mom! Are you abandoning me? Leaving a pregnant woman out in the cold, what if something happens to the baby? You'll be cursed.
As expected, the two made a scene in front of the entrance, leading to awkward stares from neighbors and noise complaints to the police. Finally breaking down, my in-laws sold the ancestral home and land, which they always talked about so proudly, as our family has protected this land for generations, every time they visited. They physically cut ties and have now fled to a distant place. From phrases in the letter like "the air here is fresh" and "we're growing vegetables," it seems they're living somewhere rural. While my in-laws have cut ties with Michael and Sophia, it seems they hear about them through Michael's younger brother. Abandoned by my in-laws and cut off from income, Michael reluctantly rented a place nearby and took a full-time job in sales. It's a small company but with a long history, apparently supplying lots of screws to major corporations. For Michael, who used to hustle in sales at a super famous car manufacturer, selling screws, a minor part of cars, felt beneath him, and he showed no motivation or good attitude, causing the company trouble in dealing with him. As for Sophia, though she safely gave birth to the child, her parenting is lackluster. She spends her days on her smartphone ignoring the child, does almost no housework, leaving the house always dirty, and fights were incessant. Then one day, Sophia ran off with all of Michael's savings, leaving only the signed divorce papers on the desk. The letter from my mother-in-law ended with, "I truly regret the trouble we caused Chloe. Please, have nothing more to do with my son and find happiness." Although I struggled with my mother-in-law during our marriage, reading that line made me feel as if my hardships were slightly vindicated. I occasionally hear from friends that Michael is actually seeking information to reconcile with me. Fortunately, Michael's abnormal behavior has been communicated throughout all my social circles, so no one engages with him, and he doesn't know my whereabouts, allowing me to live peacefully. After finishing reading the letter from my mother-in-law, I thought to cherish my current life and live positively moving forward.